Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by this week FCW Games and the Wondrous and Dangerous Consortiums, as well as the Zendria World/Lore Book Kickstarter. We'll talk about our sponsor in just a few moments. Welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026. This is a live show 1337. If you're not overly familiar with this stream, let me point out it's super casual around here. We normally just kick back talking about the latest in tabletop role-playing game news, and then I'll usually pontificate on a topic related to our hobby, which is what I will be doing tonight. More on that in just a moment as well. But keep in mind, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are never going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And then, of course, because this is a live show, there is chat available. Now, you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least an hour before you can take part in chat. It's one of the ways we keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you check out that box and you want to say howdy, maybe you got a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my absolute best to respond. First out the gate tonight is our good friend of the show, the Madman. They are back. Hopefully all is well with the Madman's parents. I believe he was off giving them a hand for the past week, so good to have you back. Valimir Cleaver is with us, as is DB. Another good friend of our show, Agile Monk, is here. J-Man, Kevin King, and let's see who else. Michael Berry has popped on in to say hello to us. Very nice. Harvey Chuckles has also popped on in. So let's talk about our sponsor, because our good friend of the show, Agile Monk, is affiliated with our sponsor. That's right. It is FCW Games and the Wondrous and Dangerous Consortiums and Zendria World Lore Book Kickstarter. So you might be wondering, what is Wondrous and Dangerous Consortiums? Approximately 200 pages of carefully curated content to provide depth of study and novelty for use in your world building. An in-depth system and tool set for creating your own consortiums. In the realm of tabletop role-playing games, the ultimate objective is to immerse players in a vibrant and engaging narrative. As a game master, your task extends beyond crafting intricate plots and settings. It encompasses creating a world that players can interact with meaningfully. This involves recognizing the profound impact that well-developed consortiums can have on the overall gaming experience and how closely tied they ought to be to player engagement. Wondrous and Dangerous Consortiums will give you 4 pillars to help you shape the foundations of your organizations, 7 articulately defined types of consortiums to help categorize the powers that be, over 30 dimensions to help cement the boundaries and elements, 19 highly detailed tables providing clear ways to differentiate your institutes, as well as 14 example consortiums, fleshed out and ready to use in your world or help you create your own ideas. Well, what is Zendria? Zendria is a living world where old and new fantasy collide, highlighting the organic interactions of the various consortiums and their power struggles. structures. It's English, Jeff. Read it. Highlighting the organic interactions of the various consortiums and their power structures. Sentry is a place where you can tell your stories from many perspectives and support many ideologies, as they are all alive and driving this vast and diverse setting. A place for your player-driven adventures to come alive. The Kickstarter is fully funded. That's right, it's fully funded. It's still got a couple of days to go. I know Agile Monk is dancing in the streets because the project has funded and it's passed. It's beyond its funding goal. It's not one of these situations where it's like, oh, one person changes their mind and it's like, no, nah. But this Kickstarter is running through June 25th. Agile Monk says, I love when Jeff says consortiums as if he gets it right. Oh, as he gets it right. I would think that's the only way to pronounce it. Consortiums. The madman points out that moving his parents was sweaty work. Yeah, there you go. Hey, I see the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is with us. She is one of our chat moderators alongside the madman. So we've got double-barreled chat moderation going on. So Agile Monk says, you'd be surprised what we hear as far as consortiums. Yeah, you'd be surprised what I hear when people try to pronounce my last name. They throw letters in there that are not in it. I've had McGaller, and it's like, where's the G at? I don't see a G. Although I will admit, over the, past couple of decades, people tend to be a lot closer to the correct pronunciation than they used to be. So how about that? So there you have it. That is our sponsor tonight. Also want to mention, I will not be around for the next week. So the next live stream is a week from tomorrow. So it's going to be July 1st. I am house sitting. I am going to try to get some videos out there. I did share a review video earlier today. So that is the Operatives Handbook. I almost said guide. It's handbook for the Laundry Role-Playing Game 2nd edition from Cubicle 7 Games. I did shoot a review for Cluster Truck for Traveler from Mongoose Publishing. And then when I went to start doing my editing, I didn't like how it came out. I didn't like the overhead shots. It wasn't as sharp as it should have been. And I should have swapped out my lenses to go with the lens I usually use to shoot books of this size. Because it's a set focal length. It's not, can't change the focal length on it. And I didn't. I stuck with the kind of all-in-one lens, which I have noticed on some books that the print just isn't real sharp on it. So I'm going to have to reshoot that. Oh, well. All right. So let's jump on. Well, you know what? Before we jump on into the news, I guess I can talk about what our topic is tonight. Seeing I moved past that so we could get to the sponsor. See, that's what happens when you sell out. You just got to always be pushing the corpos. It's how it works. It's how it works, kids. Yeah, because I'm such a shill. Anyway, tonight's topic, I'm going to share 10 Western films that would make for really great role-playing game adventures or even campaigns. So that's what we'll be talking about this evening. The main man says, I'd be surprised how many people pronounce his last name incorrectly. I actually know the madman's name, but I'm not telling. Let's jump on into the news because Free League Publishing is now taking pre-orders for the Invincible Superhero Role-Playing Core Rulebook. I've got the scoop. In Invincible Superhero Role-Playing, you and your friends take on the role of superheroes in your own corner of the Invincible universe, or any superhero setting of your own choosing. You might be a wisecracking speedster, a super genius inventor, a grizzled vigilante, a shape-shifting alien, or a high-flying symbol of hope. Whatever you play and wherever you go, you'll have to juggle relationships with patrols, face tough challenges and choices, and learn how to use your powers and learn more about yourself in the process. Who knows? You might be invincible. This features your superhero, instructions for how to create your own unique hero at any power level, from scratch or using pre-made archetypes to dive right on into the action quickly. Details on close to 70 unique superpowers and dozens of boosts, talents, and drawbacks. Fast and brutal rules for fast-paced action, superpowered combat, gruesome damage, and deadly challenges. There's a deep dive into the comic book universe of Invincible, including key locations and organizations, and tools for the game master to help set up campaigns, events, and encounters. Illustrated descriptions and statistics for over 60 key characters from the Invincible universe. And play Invincible superhero role-playing on your own without the need for a game master with crisis mode. The 277-page hardcover with PDF will carry an MSRP of $57.99 when it arrives in late July. Do you want to mention there are some places floating around saying that it's late June that this is arriving? It is not. It is late July. I think there might have been a little bit of a delay because, for one, Free League Publishing would not start taking pre-orders for something they were going to start shipping out this week. I'm just saying. DB says, as far as the madman's name and people mispronouncing his last name, DB says, man, how many times can you mispronounce that? Or how many ways can you pronounce that? Wah, 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 wah. Anyway, pretty cool. I know this had a very, very successful Kickstarter, and I might, once I have reviewed this, might give my copy to my nephew because he and his girlfriend are really into Invincible. In fact, he was really surprised that his girlfriend is into that show. Not necessarily the comic. I don't think they've really read the comic. That's where my experience comes from, is actually the comic. I started reading it way, way back, and I was like, wow, this kind of reminds me of the early days of Spider-Man. I mean, it was just very reminiscent of that. And then, of course, the big spoiler, which takes place at the end of the first episode of the animated series, actually, I think was, 12, 15, 20 issues in. So it wasn't revealed. It was a bigger shock. So W Forge is with us, and they're saying July 30th, according to the Free League Instagram. Yep, that would be late July. Of course, if you're going to be at Gen Con, I would think they will probably have it there, although I will not be surprised if it sells out very, very quickly. Moonrise Long, the massive Singularity campaign slipcase set for the Traveler role-playing game, is available for pre-order too. And I've got the lowdown from Mongoose Publishing. The Singularity has arrived, and charted space will never be the same. In this truly epic campaign, the Travelers meet a godlike alien intelligence that gives them the ability to change everything. They become agents of change using powerful new technologies to do its bidding and reshape reality. The Singularity Sourcebook provides an introduction with new equipment, maps, starships, guidelines for running a subsidized liner, and a detailed description of the express boat network that the referee will use throughout the campaign. There's Singularity Act 1. Cillian Dream opens with the travelers serving as the crew of the Ventura Fortuna, a luxurious starliner where they host and entertain a clientele of rich and famous nobles, titans of industry, media stars, and underworld power brokers. Embarking upon a series of adventures that span the core, the seat of empire and home to the imperial throne, they meet Nalir, an alien being that seeks their assistance with a wildly ambitious project. Then we've got Singularity Act 2, Renegade Minds, and Singularity Act 3, The Glass Council. Have the travelers solve ancient mysteries while simultaneously embodying their consciousnesses into an array of clones, androids, and robots to be sent on missions throughout charted space. The campaign comes to a climactic and fiery finale as they use the knowledge and power they have acquired to change the course of history. Singularity has everything you need to run this groundbreaking campaign, giving your travelers the chance to explore the limits of consciousness and technology and the ability to determine the destiny of sentient life throughout the galaxy. Break the charted space universe, bend it to your will, remake it in your image. The Singularity slipcase set contains over 600 pages of content with PDFs. It can be pre-ordered for $139.99. It is expected to arrive in late July. The PDF has just become available over at DriveThruRPG. It is $79.99. And I have got to say, this sounds very cool. Michael Berry says that they backed this Kickstarter. Oh no, I'm sorry. I think they backed the Invincible Kickstarter. I was going to say, I didn't think this was kickstarted. I know that they've been releasing the PDFs for Singularity. They just hadn't started taking pre-orders for the slipcase set. So I guess you have to buy the whole thing all together for the $139.99. But yeah, you know what? I got to say, Mongoose Publishing has been trying to take some of their traveler campaigns in different directions. And I think that's really cool. I think it was. Michael Berry says, yes, it was. Last year, it went up on Kickstarter. There you go. You know what? I probably shared news about it and completely forgot. But so this is the project that Michael Berry did back. So there you have it. Very nice. I wouldn't be surprised if we get an opportunity to take a peek at it. Seeing that kind of back on board with Mongoose Publishing, with their new marketing person or the person who's taken over marketing. So because they sent me a whole bunch of stuff, and if you tuned in late, I shot my review for Cluster Truck. Every time I say that, I want to say something else. And I went to go edit it, and I did not like how the overhead shots were. So I'm going to have to refilm it. So I was hoping to get that out probably like on Thursday, but that will not be the case. Moving right along, the Torchbearer fantasy role-playing game from the Burning Wheel is the focus of a new bundle of holding. And I've got the deets on the deal. Adventure! This all-new Torchbearer bundle presents... Anybody want to take a guess? Come on, guess! Guess! Torchbearer, the tabletop fantasy role-playing game of desperate adventure from the Burning Wheel. You're a born-to-lose vagabond out of options. Cash slips from your hands as easily as the blood from your wounds. But there's lost loot out there in forlorn ruins full of terrible monsters. If you salvage it, it's yours to sell or keep. Funded in a smash April 2020 Kickstarter campaign, Torchbearer 2nd Edition adapts the core rules, character builds, and conflict system from the Mouse Guard role-playing game to a grimmer, harsher world. Torchbearer Expeditions tax your body, your mind, and your very nature. To survive, you must carefully manage food, water, and light resources. To excel, you must fight for what you believe in. To prosper, you must fill your bags with loot and treasure. These competing needs create a tension unique to Torchbearer. You balance these factors in every decision you make. The deeper you venture, the heavier and more costly each decision becomes. Still, this life is your only hope to prosper. If you're lucky, smart, and stubborn, you might win out. For just $14.95, you'll get all the titles in the complete 2-book Torchbearer course set, as well as the Lore Master's Manual of Optional Rules and the Scavenger's Supplement with new character classes, traits, weapons, denizens, and summoning spells. And if you pay more than the current threshold price of $20.63, you'll level up and also get the entire Adventure Collection with 3 more titles worth an additional $35, including the 6-scenario Cartographer's Compendium, the full-length scenario Bridge of the Damned, and the mini-scenario Ghost Tower of the Immer Fens. These savings will run through July 13th. So there you have it. If I remember correctly, Mouse Guard, well, of course, Mouse Guard's based on the comic book, but Mouse Guard adapted the burning wheel mechanics to make for a rules lighter game. Because as far as I understand, now I've never actually taken a peek at the burning wheel or Torchbearer or Mouse Guard, but it was always my understanding that the burning wheel was a pretty crunchy system. It was a pretty complex system. And then I heard that Mouse Guard was not necessarily a rules light game, but a rules lighter game than the burning wheel. And then I thought Torchbearer is kind of back to being pretty complex. Like I said, I have never had an opportunity to take a peek, but I have also heard pretty good things about it. So Agile Monk says Burning Wheel is a madly crunchy system. I did an interview at Gen Con with, I believe it was the creator of Burning Wheel. And it was when they didn't even have their own company. The book was being produced by a comic book company, if I remember correctly. And I remember I did the interview. It was a recorded interview. It was back in the days when we would just do audio interviews, because all we did was a podcast. And of course, the website. We didn't do videos. And I remember it was one of these situations where it was like, oh, yeah, we're going to get you a copy of the book. And, it never happened. And I was like, yeah, okay. Like, all right. W. Ford says, Luke Crane. Yes, that's who I did the interview with. That is who I interviewed about it. And funny enough, that was at a time when the gaming gang was mainly board games. And because I have a great love for role-playing games, I kind of dabbled in RPGs. Elliot really didn't. He stuck with board games and that. Agile Monk says Torchbearer is a bit less crunchy than Burning Wheel, which might not necessarily be saying a lot if the Burning Wheel is as complex as I have heard. All right. Anyway, let's move on to our next news piece, because Shadowrun the Sixth World Quebec The Northern Lily is now available in PDF from Catalyst Game Labs. Here's what I know. Shadows of the North. Parlez-vous français? If you don't, learn fragging quick, especially if you want to run the shadows of Quebec. For most of its existence, people thought of Quebec as simply the place that only speaks French. But that's only part of the story. Not only is it the land of long, cold nights and dark shadows, Quebec is also one of the biggest corporate hotbeds in North America, one that rivals places such as Seattle or New York. And if that wasn't enough to whet a runner's appetite for work, Quebec also has one of the largest gang, organized crime, and even neo-anarchist presences in the region. Oh, and let's not forget its ever-shifting political alliances and shenanigans. Yep, next person to mention shenanigans, I am going to pistol whip. Damn, that's a funny movie. So, for the discerning shadow runner, Quebec is shaped up to be the next big place to be. Just don't forget your thermal clothing, because while the shadows can be extremely hot, the weather is still extremely cold. The 17-page PDF is available right now over at DriveThruRPG for $4.95. There you go. More Shadowrun 6th World releases, at least in PDF. So there is that. All right, let's wrap up the news tonight because a new supplement has arrived for Advanced Fighting Fantasy. I've got the latest on Cave Wars from Arion Games. Below the surface of Cool, a ferocious war rages. This supplement for Advanced Fighting Fantasy brings you a new way of playing this classic role-playing game. Adventure as a dwarf of Stonehaven, trying to defeat the evil goblins of Blackfang and control the caves and caverns under Cool. Play as a cunning goblin. Yeah, I'm a cunning goblin, me lord. Trying to drive the terrible dwarves of Stonehaven out of the caves and mines and protect the town of Blackfang. But in Cave Wars, you don't choose one side. Both sides choose you. You play as a dwarf one session and as a goblin the next. They're both your heroes, and you're trying to succeed with both, even as success counters your other hero. The book contains template-based goblin and dwarf hero creation, rules for Stonehaven and Blackfang towns, as well as their characteristics, session creation rules with challenges, map design, and rewards, 34 adventure seeds, campaign notes, as well as brand new goblin and dwarf hero sheets. Do want to point out, this does require the Advanced Fighting Fantasy 2nd Edition rulebook in order to utilize. The 96-page PDF is available now over at DriveThruRPG for $10. And I do believe this should be available in print in the not too distant future. So there is that. Hey, we may actually get an opportunity to take a peek at Advanced Fighting Fantasy 2nd Edition. Yeah, touch base a little bit with Arion Games. So who knows? Maybe. I've heard good things about it. I've actually had some folks recommend Advanced Fighting Fantasy if you are running a fantasy role-playing game and you only have like 2 or 3 players. Now, I don't know if that is the case because you know what I'm talking about. If you're running, say, like Pathfinder, you really want to have at least 4 players so you can get those roles covered within the group. I heard it's not so much like that in Advanced Fighting Fantasy. Don't know. Maybe we'll find out. All right. So that is it for the news tonight. Let's see. Who have we got popping on into chat? I see we've got Savage Splendor is with us. I think I may have said hello to everybody who's in chat at the moment. I believe that is the case. I would take a guess that our topic tonight is not going to necessarily be pulling in a lot of viewers, because Western's really not necessarily a thing anymore. But still, that's okay. I came up with the idea for the topic when I shared the news about the bundle of holding for writers last week, and we kind of got onto the topic of Western role-playing games and such. Anywho, like I said, I think I've said hello to everybody who's hanging out in chat. So that was the news for tonight. Of course, I mentioned Drive-Thru RPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you're going to go visit, say, I don't know, Drive-Thru RPG, Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, any of the numerous One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a 5% commission on most of those sales. And all those commissions really do add up. Help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like the video, please give it a quick thumbs up. If you're watching live, taking part in chat, be sure to hit the little heart or the, what is it, like a, it's not a bouquet of flowers, I don't think. I thought it's more like a horn full of confetti or something. There's also the 100. So any kind of engagement helps. And if you're watching on a mobile device and they have a few hype points left, by all means, sprinkling a few on the video is always appreciated. And of course, if you enjoy the Gaming Gang, if you feel that this is a valuable resource, if you like the website, you like the channel, hell, if you just dig what we're doing, there are a couple of other ways that you can support the outlet. First, by making a one-time donation by way of PayPal. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Ooh, that's good. You can also become a monthly member of our Patreon. You'll find links in the show notes. Also down in those show notes, you're going to find a link to our Discord server. So come on by. It's absolutely free to sign up. Be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. And then, of course, I like to give a shout out to our Patreon members during all of our live streams. So tip of the cap to Ben Oldthwaite, Kuval, Kevin R. Smith, Talzek, Peaceful Porcupine, the Tabletop Scholar, Sean O'Donnell, Herman Lutman, Gustavo Cavalho, Kevin King, Game Cat, RPG Munch, Tier 2 DM, Far Adrift, Peace Tracklich, Dan Webb, Tessie Trekkie, Agile Monk, The Madman, and Flint Fireforge. Thank you very, very kindly. I see Boomerman, Dan Webb, and Seamus Todd have popped on in to chat tonight. Very cool. Very cool. Dude, tonight's topic is going to be 10 Westerns that I think would make for great role-playing adventures or even campaigns. We're going to get to that in just a little bit. A couple of things I want to mention if you're tuning in a little bit late. This is the only show this week. So I am house sitting beginning first thing tomorrow morning. There will probably be some videos popping up, even though I did not have an opportunity to shoot the number of videos that I would have liked. Oh, well. But I am planning on popping back home, even though I'm not really close by. It's about a 35-minute drive where I'm going to be at. I am going to be popping back here. So I am hopefully going to get at least a couple of videos out the rest of the week. So the next live stream is a week from tomorrow. So it'll be July 1st. Have no idea what the topic is going to be, but we will find out. We will find out. So keep that in mind. Only show or only live stream, I should say, for this week. Then I also went and I unlisted a few hundred videos from the channel. And I mentioned this on social media, also mentioned it in our posts. It used to be called community for a channel. Now it's just posts. And I pointed that out, and some people were, I think they were confused by what unlisting a video means. Or maybe they just weren't aware of what unlisting a video means. The videos still exist. I have not deleted the videos. The videos are still there. I have different playlists here on the channel. So I've got like live shows and reviews and interviews and miscellaneous things like that. Those videos are still in those playlists. So it's not as if they've disappeared or you can't find them. But the thing is, YouTube had been tossing like really old videos into the recommended feeds. And it's like, I can't tell you how many times on my the Gaming Gang account for YouTube, I was getting, the test stream, the original test stream video. And I was like, why does this keep showing up? This thing's from like 2017. I was like, damn, what the hell is going on here? So I went and essentially took pretty much all of the videos that had kind of video quality, and I just unlisted them. Now, some of them I did keep listed simply because, they've got like 30,000 views and they still bring in a few views here and there. But for the most part, a lot of the old live streams, a lot of the old reviews, some of our original interviews. We even had some interviews that Elliot had conducted. That's how far back our channel goes, right? So those I unlisted. And then essentially like the later videos before we got better cameras, if it had fewer than 1,000 views, I pretty much unlisted those. Agile Monk says, or ones where Jeff looked 20 years old. Ain't any of those out there. I do look younger, I will tell you that. There's no doubt about that. But anyway, so just pointing that out. The videos exist. They're still there. If anybody ever wants to be like, oh, yeah, I want to go back and see what the live stream looked like 6 years ago. Yeah, easy. No problem. You can do it. Savage Splinter asks, what's on the bottom left under the one ring? It is Clockwork and Claws for Cthulhu by Gaslight, which just came out. I reviewed it a while back, but it just came out. There are a couple of adventures in it. So, yes, that's what you are taking a peek at right over there, right next to Guinevere, the dragon from Gen Con, and this oddball little goofy face thing. So there. Man, I can't remember how many years I've been watching the shows. It's definitely been a few. I know Kevin R. Smith had commented, because I shared an image from one of the videos that I unlisted. And it was from when the live stream was called The Daily Dope. So I want to say, I think it may have been like the first 300 or so streams. It was The Daily Dope. And it was It was called the Daily Dope because it was kind of like the dope as in, here's the news, right? I guess a lot of people nowadays don't understand that reference. And then it was also like, well, yeah, I'm kind of a dope. But I do recall because I was live streaming on YouTube and Twitch. Well, I did that for maybe a week or so. And I had the chat was both. And people would pop in to the live stream thinking it was a show about drugs. It's like, yeah, okay. It's like, that's not what the show's about. The Man says, I know I started watching when it was the Daily Dope. Yes. And I used some of the first episodes. It was actually a side shot of me. And over here, I had a table set up with an overhead camera. And I would like turn to this camera here. Well, not this camera, but a cam that was over here. Ugh. Just awful. Although the sound quality was okay. It was all right. It was not too shabby. And I know a lot of people out there always talk about, as far as videos, they'll put up with not great video quality, but if the sound is bad, forget it. Grouchy Lenny's with us. Welcome once again. Good to see you. Anyway, so those are the two things I wanted to mention. No shows the rest of the week. I won't be back till a week from tomorrow, and I unlisted probably 400 videos, maybe more than that. So, like I said, they're not going anywhere. It's just YouTube won't be throwing them out into people's feeds anymore, because I'll tell you right now, that was not doing us any favors. So, yes. All right. So tonight we are going to be talking about 10 Western films that I feel would make for great role-playing adventures and even campaigns. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
High noon in...
I am stuck on Band-Aid, 'cause Band-Aid stuck on me.
Da 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 da. I am stuck on Band-Aid bread, 'cause Band-Aid stuck on me.
I am stuck on Band-Aid, 'cause Band-Aid stuck on me. 'Cause they really stick to your fingers and they stick on Band-Aid knees.
I am stuck on Band-Aid, 'cause Band-Aid stuck on me.
Remember, only Johnson & Johnson makes Band-Aid brand adhesive bandages with the unique Super Stick adhesive. Depend on the protection of America's #1 bandage.
Ladies and gentlemen, the all-American favorite, steak and potatoes.
Hey, down here on the plate, you shouldn't complain, but how come I never get top billing? Why isn't it da-da, potatoes? Potatoes and whatever. I've got vitamin C, iron, B1, and ounce for ounce about as many calories as an apple.
Okay, how about that all-American favorite, potatoes and...
Ah! Hold it. One more thing. Check the paper. I've got a very good price right now.
And now, meet the star of our show. Symbol of a treat that quality made famous. America's most famous ice cream treat. Eskimo pie. Creamy, delicious ice cream made even more exciting with smooth, rich chocolate coating. And wearing the label of quality, known the world over. Eskimo pie, the treat you know is tops because it carries its pledge of quality right on the back of the bag. Be sure you save the bags for valuable premiums. Get famous Eskimo pie at our refreshment stand now. It's America's anytime taste treat. Finest ice cream, finest chocolate. It's delicious.
Want a sandwich made with tasty bread?
I've got a job to do. Let me have that sandwich made with tasty bread.
Drama moves here. Raw, violent, real. You live the robust days of frontiermen, their nights of danger, their laughs, their loves. You feel the penetrating chill of savage war cries, the piercing impact of an arrow shot from ambush, of Indians of all nations banded together for one last war on the advancing white men. And into this danger-infested land comes one woman, young, provocative. Because of her, men fight heroically. Because of her, men die.
I know all this is because of me.
Only the man who commands can be blamed. Rests on me.
Don't pull rank on me. You've been green-eyed ever since you put on that yellow ribbon.
Button up that shirt, mister.
Yes, please.
You can sneer all you want to, but you keep your paws off my girl.
We must stop this war, pony that walks.
Too late, Nathan. Too late.
So that Band-Aid commercial not only had John Travolta and Terry Garr, I am pretty sure that was Joan Cusack. Pretty sure. Because she would have been the right age, because Joan Cusack is actually John Cusack's older sister. Will. All right. So I see, I'm trying to see who it was that popped on. Oh, Pliskin's with us. Good to see you once again. All right. So Velimir Cleaver's talking about how Judikai films influenced Westerns. Yeah, but those films weren't done in the 30s and 40s. I thought, weren't those like 50s and 60s? So, because Grouchy Lenny said John Ford inspired Kurosawa's samurai films, which in turn inspired a whole generation of Westerns. Man says, you are correct. That was Joan Cusack. I thought it was. I mean, it was obviously Terry Garr and John Travolta. But yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Joan Cusack there. There you go. A trio of future Hollywood stars. You know, just like, we'll get to the topic in just a second. I was really surprised by how many commercials Farrah Fawcett was in prior to being in Logan's Run. She was in loads and loads of commercials. All right. So tonight, once again, our topic is 10 Westerns that I feel would make for great role-playing adventures or even campaigns. Now, there are some rules to this. So keep in mind, this is not a list of my 10 favorite Westerns by any stretch. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of great Westerns on this list. But I wanted to make sure I picked out Westerns where you had at least 4 characters. At least 4 characters who get a good amount of screen time together. So that's why you are not going to see any Clint Eastwood movies, because outside of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, it's Clint. So there is that. And like James Stewart. James Stewart was in some really great Westerns. Winchester 73 is a fine example. But he doesn't interact with all the other characters. It's the story actually follows the rifle. And James Stewart is in part of the movie. So you might be sitting there and go, wait a second, Jeff, how come Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid isn't on here? And it's because it's mainly 2 characters. Yeah, okay, if you want to throw Catherine Ross in there, but she's a school teacher. How exciting is it going to be to play the Catherine Ross character in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, right? So I just wanted to point that out. So we've got that. Now, some folks are taking guesses at some of the Westerns. They're also sharing their personal choice on what they think would make for an excellent adventure or campaign. So we've got that. I should also mention that there is only one movie on this list that is less than 40 years old, at least. So a lot of modern stuff didn't make the cut. I will talk about some honorable mentions before we hit number 1 on the list. But number 10 is actually the newest of all the movies, and somebody's already mentioned it, and it is Bone Tomahawk. And the premise of the film is that these people are kind of disappearing on, out in the wilderness or around this town, and people are, they're not sure exactly what's going on, but it's not like, oh, okay. They're not gonna, they're not too concerned with it. And then 3 people disappear, like right from under the sheriff's nose. And he finds out that there's this group of troglodytes. Don't get to hear that word too often anymore. Who they're cannibals and they're inbred, and they were Native Americans at one point, but now they've degenerated. So the premise is that we have Kurt Russell put together this posse. Patrick Wilson's one of them, to try to see if they can retrieve these 3 people. And I will tell you that the movie is like hyper violent. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So if you're a little bit squeamish, probably should not be on your radar here. But the reason why I would say that this makes for a really good adventure is because you've got the posse, you've got the group going and trying to rescue these captives. You've got these kind of weird, like there's a scene towards the end of the movie. I'm not going to ruin it, but it's sort of like kind of like a holy shit kind of moment. So it's a good way for you to mix some horror in with the Western without it having to be supernatural. So it's not a Weird West movie at all. It's just that, these troglodytes are all inbred and stuff like that. They've polluted their gene pool essentially. But some discussion of cowboys and aliens being a good source for an adventure. That kind of, I got to say, that focuses a little too much on Daniel Craig. I don't think there are enough characters to give like equal screen time to. And I did want to stay away from things that are like Weird West. I wanted to really focus on films that are truly Westerns. So, and Bone Tomahawk is a Western. And if you can get past that really gross out violence, it's actually pretty good. But as far as the violence goes, it makes The Hateful Eight from Quentin Tarantino look like a Sesame Street production. All right. Number 9, somebody else mentioned this as well. And it is A Wild Bunch, 1969. It's directed by Sam Peckinpah. In fact, the first of 2 Sam Peckinpah movies. And in this, the players would take on the role of aging outlaws who are attempting to survive really by any means necessary because their way of life is dying. And this takes place 1913. And it's it's funny because the movie got a reputation for its violence because when it came out, it was I wouldn't say it was on the same scale as Bonnie and Clyde as far as like blood just spurting all over the place, but compared to other movies from the late 60s, yeah, it's pretty violent. But this would make for a really good campaign because there's a lot going on in this movie, and the outlaws end up down in Mexico, and they're the main gist of the storyline is about these stolen guns, and they have these guns. They're going to sell them, and they have a machine gun. Well, like the 1913 equivalent of a machine gun. And that is something they hang on to because the outlaws figure, hey, they're going to get double crossed by this revolutionary down in Mexico. And of course, that is what happens. And just this big old gunfight with a lot of slow motion action. Agile Monk says it's a Gatling gun. It's a little more than a Gatling gun. It's not like a water-cooled machine gun or anything like that, but it's a damn good movie. Ernest Borgnine and William Holden's the star. But it would be another campaign where you've got plenty of room for all the characters, all your players at the table. So, because there are a good number of major players in this. So that would be number 9 on my list. Valamira Cleaver says Hotchkiss guns. You know what? I think that is what it is. Tessie Trekkie has popped out. Oh, actually, Tessie Trekkie's been here before, weren't they? Maybe not. They're talking about the car and horse chase. Yeah, because the revolutionary owns like this roadster, and that's like all throughout the movie. And this would be an element that you would want to try to at least bring out in some role-playing aspects of a campaign based on the Wild Bunch, is that every where they turn around, they see things that just prove to them that their lives as outlaws just is gone. I mean, there's no way to really live the sort of lifestyle that they had previously, and that the world is basically passing them by and leaving them behind. And when they see the roadster, that's one of the things that kind of drives it home. Peaceful Porcupine is jumping on into chat. Welcome. So number 8 on the list is a movie that when it came out was pretty harshly reviewed. And it's another Sam Peckinpah film. And the studio kind of took control away from Sam Peckinpah. And they chopped the film up and essentially ruined the movie. And it is Major Dundee. And this stars Charlton Heston is the main star in it. Richard Harris is also in it. Richard Harris plays a Confederate, I'm trying to remember. I think he's a colonel. Yeah, Richard Harris. So we've got, gosh, now I'm trying to remember. Trying to remember who else is in the movie. Well, regardless. Okay. So Charlton Heston gets not necessarily cashiered after the Battle of Gettysburg because he makes some tactical mistakes. So they don't like boot him out, but they send him to New Mexico territory to be the commandant of a prisoner of war camp. And he goes there, and Apaches are using Mexico as a place to raid out of. So this frontier settlement and a column of cavalry are massacred by this Apache war chief. And Dundee assembles a war party of his own, and it's unsanctioned. So he's got Union troops, he's got Confederate troops, he has colored troops, he's got some other just, hangers on that are part of it as well. And they go after the Apache chief and his warriors, and they actually end up fighting with the French because Mexico's in the midst of its own revolution going on down there. And there are French troops there in support of Maximilian. And it ends up that Dundee and his force goes up against these French troops. So it's actually a pretty damn good movie once they restored it. So early 2000s, they added, I want to say it's about a dozen minutes back into the movie, because I saw the original cut when I was, I don't know, maybe 20. I went through a period where I was checking out like a lot of Westerns. And I remember I saw it and there were like these massive plot holes. Now, the restored footage doesn't necessarily fill the plot holes, but it does make it a better movie. And it's not necessarily like a director's cut, because I guess there's footage that Peckinpah wanted in the final product that got cut that's just lost to time. It's gone. So let's see. Who else do we have here? We've got Pip is with us. I don't recognize the nickname, so welcome. Michael Muirhead's with us as well. Let's see. And we had a few more people popping on into chat. I think Mark Hawkswell is with us in chat too. Michael Muirhead's asking, what's the list so far? So number 10 was Bone Tomahawk. Number 9 is The Wild Bunch. Number 8 is Major Dundee. And number 7 is going to be the first entry in this list from John Ford. And it is the film that we watched, the trailer, in our brief intermission. She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. That's from 1949. It's actually the second film in John Ford's Cavalry trilogy, as they like to call it. And this is a good one. The last assignment, I guess we'll say, of Cavalry Captain Nathan Brittles, which is John Wayne, before he retires, is to soothe the relations with the Cheyenne and Arapaho Indians because they've jumped the reservation because of the Sioux victory over Custer at the Little Bighorn Massacre. It wasn't a battle of Little Bighorn. It was a massacre. And interestingly enough, the Cavalry trilogy from John Ford is not your typical Westerns. They don't take the typical approach of film Westerns of that time with the native peoples, right? So for the most part, the Native Americans are treated with some respect in these 3 John Ford movies, which is interesting because there's a movie also on this list from John Ford where they are not. So there's some various discussion about different Westerns in that. So something to keep in mind. So this is a list of Westerns that would make for great role-playing adventures or campaigns. And one of the biggest criteria to make this list was the movie had to feature enough major characters for at least 4 characters at your game table. So that's why there's going to be a lot of famous Westerns that you're like, oh yeah, this Western or that Western, that are not going to be on this list. There's no Clint Eastwood. There aren't any James Stewart movies like The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Fantastic movie. It's essentially 2 characters, maybe 3. Not enough to really put together a role-playing game adventure around. Anyway, Michael Muirhead asks, what's the movie with Dustin Hoffman? Little Big Man. That's a good one. Yeah. Where, trying to remember the actor's name, plays Custer. And he plays Custer like just this egomaniacal lunatic. Richard Mulligan is the actor who plays him. And yeah, that is a good movie. Also, not a movie that you could really make into a role-playing game adventure unless you're running like one-on-one. One of the things I like about that movie is that you realize, for one, Dustin Hoffman's character is completely full of shit. And that Dustin Hoffman's character will do anything to survive. So, anyway, Velimir Cleaver's talking about Treasure of Sierra Madre. That is a Western, but it's not kind of like it's a great movie, but it's not like Western role-playing game Western. W. Ford says they would say Silverado, but they don't think that I'm a fan of the movie. Well, you're going to find out. So anyway, let's get back to She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. So John Wayne's character is about to retire. And it's funny, John Ford didn't want to cast John Wayne in the movie because John Wayne was too young. And then I'm trying to remember, he saw a movie with John Wayne in it. And he was like, God damn, he can act? So I figured, well, hell, they'll just age him up with some makeup. And that's what they did. So what he's forced to do is he's not only got to try to get the Indians to go back onto their reservation so we don't have another Indian war breaking out. And at the same time, he's supposed to transport the commanding officer's wife and niece to a stage going east to get them out of danger. And then they end up getting to the stage station and it's been burnt to the ground. And of course the stage isn't there. But it's a very interesting scenario. And you could easily have up to 6 characters taking part in it. And a couple of women are featured in the film, and they're not just damsels in distress. There's a little more to them than that. So that is number 7 on my list. She wore a yellow ribbon. Number 6 is Rio Grande. So this is actually the 3rd film in the John Ford Cavalry trilogy. And weirdly enough, John Wayne plays a character. He is Lieutenant Colonel Kirby York. And in the first movie in the Cavalry trilogy, John Wayne plays a character named Kirby York. But the last names are spelled a little bit different. And they're not the same character. I thought that was so weird. It's like it's the same phonetically pronounced name. Why? Why not just change the character's name as opposed to, well, yeah, we'll just, I guess all cavalry officers are named Kirby York. So he is in command of it's actually a cavalry post. It's on the Texas side of Rio Grande. And he is estranged from his wife for like 15 years. And his 16-year-old son shows up, and he's one of the new privates who have been assigned to this cavalry post. And for one, he's actually too young to serve, but he was at West Point and he's flunked out. So he's gone ahead and enlisted as a private. So, and Wayne tells him that, hey, I'm going to treat you just like everybody else, and actually treats him worse than everybody else. And the son is like, that's fine. That's what I want. I don't want you cutting me, any slack, right? So we've got that. And then we have his estranged wife show up, trying to convince the son to go back home. She'll get him a tutor. He can go back to West Point, take it from there. And of course, we have some issues with the Apaches. And there's one point where John Wayne's character meets with like his equivalent in the Mexican army. And it's made very clear that they are not to enter Mexico. If they enter Mexico going after the Apache, there's going to be problems. And then Phil Sheridan makes an appearance. Yes, General Phil Sheridan of American Civil War fame shows up, and he wants John Wayne to go into Mexico after the Apache and wipe out the Apaches there. And he basically says, hey, you know what? If you get court-martialed for doing this, because he's ordering John Wayne to do this, and he can't legally order John Wayne to do this, but he's still ordering John Wayne to do this. And he tells the Duke that, hey, you know what? If you're court-martialed for this, we'll make sure that we put a bunch of your Civil War peers on the jury. You got nothing to worry about. So that's some interesting stuff going on. And this is another movie that has a ton of characters in it. I mean, loads and loads of characters to use not only as inspiration for player characters, but also for NPCs. Something that's pretty funny is if you check out the various different Westerns that John Wayne appeared in for Howard Hawks and John Ford, there's like this cast that surrounds him that's in like a ton of these movies. Like you could pick like 5 actors from the group. And if you happen to watch 5 of these John Wayne movies, at least 3 of them will always be in each of the movies. It's pretty wild. It's pretty cool. Anyway, and Maureen O'Hara's in this. I like Maureen O'Hara. Now, so funny enough, here's another little story about this movie. So John Ford didn't want to make another Western. He had made a bunch of Westerns. He wanted to make The Quiet Man, which also had John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara and Victor McLaughlin, who's also in this movie. And this was for Republic. The first 2 movies were RKO. So Republic was going to finance The Quiet Man. It was going to be a Republic picture. But they didn't think it was going to do well at all. So they convinced John Ford to do Rio Grande to help make up for the money that Republic was going to lose on The Quiet Man. Well, Rio Grande did fine. Quiet Man did way better. It was one of the most popular movies when it came out. But that was kind of interesting. They wouldn't let John Ford make The Quiet Man, which is a great movie, unless he made Rio Grande. I thought that was pretty wild. All right, let's see. Laconic Lane is with us. The King in Yellow in Carcosa has joined us as well. So somebody just asked. Before asking, anybody remember Bad Girls from the 90s? That'll be on another episode. Well, top 10 bad girls of the 90s. All right, so W4 is wondering if Young Guns is going to make the list. I already gave you a clue. You should be able to answer that question on your own, because I'm pretty sure W4 was here at the start. All right, so we are hitting the halfway point. Number 5 on my list is El Dorado. It's probably a movie that maybe a lot of you have never seen. It's from 1966. It is Howard Hawks. In fact, out of the movies on this list, and 9 of them are Peckinpah, Ford, and Hawks. Anyway, it is the only time John Wayne and Robert Mitchum starred together in a movie where they actually shared the screen. They were in, I think it was The Longest Day. They also starred in, but they were never in scenes together. So, Heartless Tycoon Bart Jason, who's played by Edward Asner, hires a group of thugs to force the McDonald family out of El Dorado because he wants to claim their land. He wants to get their water rights, too. J.P. Hara, the town sheriff, John Wayne, is too deep in the throes of alcoholism. Oh, wait a second. I'm sorry. That's Mitchum. That's Robert Mitchum. Um, he's an alcoholic, and he really isn't able to help the family out. And then one of his really good friends, he's a gunfighter named Cole Thornton, which is John Wayne, learns of the predicament. He's been hired by the Ed Asner character to run these folks out and probably kill the sheriff. And then he finds out, oh, wait a second, this is a buddy of mine. As Miss Sarah D is rocking on out, good to see you, and hope to see you next week. Anyway, Laconic Lane says this channel turned into TMC. I'm not complaining. Well, the whole premise here is Western films that would make for great role-playing game adventures or campaigns. So that's also another reason why some movies aren't making this list. Anyway, so you've got John Wayne, and then you get James Caan is also in this as one of the good guys. And it's pretty interesting because El Dorado, in some ways, it's not exactly like Rio Bravo, but it's fairly close, where you got the alcoholic character who's going to make good eventually. But there's a lot going on in this movie. So John Wayne goes out to tell the Ed Asner character, hey, you know what? I'm not taking your job. And then on the way back, he's shot at by this kid who's a member of the family who Ed Asner is trying to drive off. And he gets shot. The kid gets shot dead. Well, I take that back. The kid gets shot in the gut, and he thinks he's been essentially gut shot. He's going to die, and he kills himself before Robert Mitchum. I almost said Burt Lancaster. The Robert Mitchum character tries to stop him. So anyway, so eventually the Robert Mitchum character gets shot in the back by the sister of the kid, because she doesn't realize what happened. And he survives, but they can't take the bullet out. It's near his spine. So the bullet actually will cause him periodic periods of paralyzation. Especially when he needs to, shoot it out. But it's no Rio Bravo, but once again, it is a movie where you've got enough important major characters throughout that you could concoct an adventure out of it and not end up giving one of the players like the short end of the stick as far as those things go. So that's, once again, another one of the reasons why it makes the list, is because, for one, it would be a good adventure, right? Loggerheads against the rich bastard trying to run these folks off. And the sheriff's kind of a drunk, so he's not of much use early on. So yes. So you got plenty of characters and NPCs to go around. All right, number 4 is actually one of my absolute favorite Westerns of all time. It's another Howard Hawks film from 1948. It is Red River. So this is a fictionalization of the first cattle drive from Texas to Kansas. I remember, I think it's Abilene, along the Chisholm Trail. And no, Chisholm did not make this list. I thought about it. I'll give Chisholm a little shout out when we're done with this list here. All right. So it really focuses on the feud between John Wayne, who is he's kind of a cattle baron. He's become a cattle baron, and his adopted son, over how they're going to manage the drive. And they already have differences here. So, I gotta say that this is a really interesting role with John Wayne, although at the end it's a little too clean. It's a little too neat and tidy, I guess I'll say. And John Wayne's character is pretty much a prick. I mean, he's an asshole. And it's kind of interesting because he's not necessarily a villain, but he's driven. There's another movie on the list we're going to talk a little bit about. Plays a similar sort of character, but he's pretty nasty throughout most of the film, and he's pretty rough on his adopted son. But this makes for a perfect campaign, because now you'd probably want to play down the animosity between the father and the adopted son. Although the reality is that the son he just has a different way. Yeah, he's a little more laid back than John Wayne is. And he doesn't like resorting to violence like John Wayne will. In fact, there's a portion where I remember, I think it's like the cook hand drops something that causes a stampede, and one of the ranch hands gets killed. One of the cowboys gets killed, and John Wayne is going to essentially whip him to death. And then his son shoots a guy, doesn't kill him, but he wounds him so that John Wayne won't whip him to death. So W. Ford says, the Valley of Guanji, Cowboys and Dinosaurs. So we stayed away from Weird West. So there is no Weird West in the list here. But anyway, Red River, great movie. Excellent movie, but it would make for a really good campaign, especially if you lifted things from other films or television series that featured cattle drives. Then you'd be in good shape. All right. Number 3 on the list. And yes, I did just foreshadow. It is The Searchers from 1956. Another John Ford movie. By many people consider this the greatest Western ever. I think it is an excellent movie. Weirdly enough, though, it's after the Cavalry trilogy for John Ford. But John Ford is a bit heavy-handed with the Native Americans in this. It's not horrible, but I mean, most of the Native Americans that you see in the movie are kind of like savages. Not all of them, but most. So I would probably try to change that up a little bit. If you're not familiar with The Searchers, why are you even watching this? Because talking about Western films that would make excellent adventures or campaigns, this would make for a fantastic campaign. John Wayne's character comes back to his Texas home following the Civil War, and it's his brother's family, and they there's, if I remember right, there's rumors of Indians on the warpath, essentially. And John Wayne and a bunch of the John Wayne regulars, they form a posse and they go off to see what's going on. And it turns out that was just kind of a ploy to get them away from the settlements. So when they find that out, they race back to John Wayne's character's brother's homestead, and they find out everybody but the two young girls have been killed. And essentially what happens is John Wayne and trying to remember, I think it's his. Oh, it's not his, it's her. It's her adopted brother. So Natalie Wood is in this. One of the girls is the like adopted sister of Jeffrey Hunter. So Jeffrey Hunter goes off with John Wayne, and it's like a years-long search to try to find the two girls. And it's the I believe it's the Comanche that have taken her. Anyway, W. Ford says Jeffrey Hunter, from cowboy to Christ to starship captain, and then nothing after. Tabletop Scholar is with us. So we got a lot of people joining in who did not catch the rules to how you made the list. And the biggest thing is that the movie had to have enough major characters for at least 4 players in the Game Master. So there are a lot of movies that people are thinking, oh man, this is the greatest Western ever. It very well may be, just not to create an RPG adventure for a group. So just letting folks know, because I've seen Unforgiven mentioned a few times. I got to be honest, I don't think Unforgiven would make for a very good role-playing adventure. I just don't, because the important beats of that movie would be very difficult to pull off around the game table. So, anywho, and you got to keep in mind, some of the major characters that are in that movie don't really interact with each other at all, or at least until certain points. Anyway, so, yeah, Searchers easily becomes the opportunity for an excellent campaign where John Wayne's character, her adopted brother, and then, you know, the John Wayne gang are off in search of Natalie Wood and her sister. All right, number 2 on the list. We're going to go back. Yes, it's another John Ford movie. It is Fort Apache. It is the first of the Cavalry trilogy from John Ford. And interestingly enough, it features Henry Fonda. Henry Fonda is not necessarily a villain. Oh, I foreshadowed The Searchers. John Wayne becomes a really dark character. He becomes almost along the lines, if you're familiar with I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. I'm not talking about the Will Smith movie. I'm talking about the book. And maybe a little bit The Last Man on Earth, where he kind of becomes the villain. Granted, he's eventually, you know, saved, but yeah, he's not necessarily the bad guy. It's almost like Red River. I mean, as the movie progresses, he becomes a much darker character throughout. All right. Anyway, so the reason why I mentioned that is because we actually get Henry Fonda in this movie, and you also get an adult Shirley Temple. And Henry Fonda plays a lieutenant colonel who had been a brevet general in the Civil War, and he's like really by the book. And he, if I remember right, I think he's a West Pointer, and he's been assigned to take command of Fort Apache. And this is where we get another Kirby York John Wayne's character, except York is just spelled a little bit different. Anyway, so there's a clash between those two characters because Henry Fonda is very by the book, and John Wayne's character has been out on the frontier for years. He's familiar with the Native Americans. He understands the Apache, and he has a pretty decent relationship with the native peoples out there. And then, of course, Henry Fonda comes and just throws a huge wrench in it because all he wants to try to do is earn glory by massacring Indians. So this is another movie that is very sympathetic, especially compared to other Westerns of that era. It's very sympathetic to the Native Americans. They're not the villains. They're not the savages that they'd be portrayed as in a lot of other Western films. Really good stuff. It does have some historical precedents. It's there's the let's say it's the Fenneman massacre. So it kind of draws from that. Same kind of situation. It was somebody out west who was just, ready to go, just wanted to fight the Redskins and live to regret it. So there you have it. So yeah, Henry Fonda's character gets warned and ignores John Wayne and lives to regret it. But another movie, lots of various different characters there at Fort Apache that you can interact with. There's a lot of little set pieces. I mean, it would make for a good adventure, not maybe necessarily a campaign, but probably an adventure over a few sessions, I think would do really well. All right, so before we hit number one, I want to mention some honorable mentions. That so like Chisholm, that was one, but I don't think there's enough characters that play a major role. Yes, you got Billy the Kid. Also, some of the characters don't really interact that much with each other. So Velmir Cleaver's talking about Blazing Saddles. Michael Murad's also talking about Blazing Saddles. Edge Monk says he acts pretty jerky about Fort Apache. See, a lot of people showed up a little late. You missed the one movie that was made in the last 40 years or newer. Everything else is at least 40 years old. All right. So Kevin King says Magnificent Seven has to be number one. No, that is an honorable mention. That is an honorable mention. It's got plenty of characters, but there are some characters who basically don't do anything in the movie. They get their introduction. They get their introduction scene. Maybe they get a line or two. And then they meet their maker. So the Magnificent Seven is essentially a two-character movie. Steve McQueen and Yul Brynner, who really didn't like each other during the filming of that movie. Tombstone, not even an honorable mention, and I'll tell you why. Because Tombstone is another two-character movie. Yeah, you got the Earps, but they aren't in a whole lot of it. I also wanted to look for movies that have female characters who just aren't there to be damsels in distress. So that's also one of the reasons. But yeah, Tombstone is essentially Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday. Like I said, if you're running a game for like a couple of players, there are so many movies out there that you could use to create Western adventures. If you got 4 or 5 players around your table, it does cut into it quite a bit. Let's see. Silverado. I don't mind Silverado. I just don't think Silverado is that great a movie. It's got enough characters. But it's also one of those movies where you've got the characters normally doing their own thing. And then at the end of the movie, they get together. DB says the Long Riders would be a good one. Yeah, that would kind of fall into the same category of the Wild Bunch, where now granted, it's not like, you know, their way of life is disappearing. But yeah, the Long Riders, that's actually a really good movie too. And funny enough, one of the things that makes it really interesting are the brothers are actually played by real life actors who are brothers. I thought that was kind of wild. But yeah, I remember seeing that when that came out. It is a pretty damn good movie. Another honorable mention, almost made the list, is Stagecoach. Plenty of characters, lots of characters doing different things, a lot of characters interacting with each other throughout a lot of the movie. I just don't like the way the Native Americans are presented in Stagecoach. And it's funny because it's a John Ford movie. About 9 years before he makes the first of his Cavalry trilogy films. And in Stagecoach, the Native Americans are just there to be killed. They're savages, they are mindless killers, and they are just made to be wiped out in that movie. So it did make the list. It had a lot of things going for it. It just, that's what kind of took it out. But Grouchy Lenny says the characters get to do a little more in Seven Samurai, but they got underplayed in the Magnificent Seven. Yeah, you know what? You're right. In the Seven Samurai, yeah, you actually, each of the characters do have, some screen time. But yeah, if you watch the Magnificent Seven, you will find that like, the guy who was in Man from U.N.C.L.E., Roberts, I can't remember his name. He plays like the gunfighter. If I remember, he's a gunfighter, but he's kind of lost his nerve a little bit. Used to be like the fastest draw. He's got like nothing to do. Nothing at all. All right. Anyway, so let's hit number 1 because there we go. Robert Vaughn. Thank you, JD Sewell. I don't know why the hell I couldn't think of that. All right. In my opinion, the number 1 Western to turn into an adventure is Rio Bravo. It's not a fantastic Western. Okay. Let's just point that out. And as far as plot goes, kind of similar to El Dorado, although Rio Bravo came out first. So and it's Howard Hawks who did El Dorado as well. But this is a movie where you've got enough characters that all have something to do and they all interact together a lot. So Claude Akins plays this gunslinger who shoots down a guy in cold blood in a saloon. And John Wayne is the sheriff, and he goes to arrest Claude Akins. And Dean Martin is essentially the town drunk. And he's friends with John Wayne. And he helps John Wayne out. So Claude Akins, they take in to custody, they take him to the jail. And then his brother comes around talking about he's going to bust him out. So the sheriff needs, additional backup. So he gets Walter Brennan. Yeah, yeah. Another guy who showed up in a lot of John Wayne movies. His character's name is Stumpy. Hey, Stumpy. And Ricky Nelson. Heartthrob Ricky Nelson get this, as a gunfighter named Colorado. So the four of them have to, prevent Claude Akins getting busted out. That's essentially what it boils down to. And it is a good movie. It's a fun movie. Like I said, it's not the greatest Western out there. It's certainly not number one in my book. But as far as creating a role-playing game adventure out of it, each of the characters has interesting angles to them. And the characters do interact with each other a lot. So also pretty important. W. Ford asked, Once Upon a Time in the West, great movie. Also another film where you don't have the major characters interacting with each other enough. Once Upon a Time in the West would make for an excellent one-player or two-player adventure. And if you were making it a one-player adventure, you would probably be running it with your player character as the Charles Bronson character. But I'll tell you what, the cool thing about that movie, especially, at the time it came out, was that you see these, like, what are they? So I think they're sod busters. If it's been a long time since I saw it. If I remember right, they're sod busters, and this guy just guns them down, and he guns down this kid, and then the camera cuts to them, and it's Henry Fonda. Henry Fonda plays this real fucking bastard, which that wasn't necessarily Henry Fonda's, MO. So him playing the gung-ho colonel in Fort Apache was kind of different. He also played Wyatt Earp in My Darling Clementine. But another movie that it didn't make the list because it's mainly Henry Fonda. So people have been kind of curious. Well, what about Lonesome Dove? Lonesome Dove was a television series. We've actually talked about Lonesome Dove, turning Lonesome Dove into a role-playing game campaign before. So also Open Range. We talked about this last week when we were talking about the Writer's Bundle of Holding. Good movie, but it's essentially a two-character film. It starts off at 4 characters, but those 2 other characters outside of Robert Duvall and Kevin Costner don't get a lot of screen time. I said stream time. Wishlight's with us said they want to re-envision Deadwood in Malifaux. Danny Gable says, I pity the mule. Man, what the hell? Can I not talk today? Other mini series. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It is Robert Duvall and Thomas Hayden Church And that's really good. Michael Muirhead says you could consider No Country for Old Men Western adjacent. There's a lot of like more modern setting that are obviously Westerns. There are a lot of Australian Westerns out there that are pretty well regarded. I personally haven't seen some of them. And of course, we were focusing on the traditional Western period. We got a little bit out of it with the Wild Bunch, but the Wild Bunch is still a Western. So, all right. So there you have it. So if you tuned in a little bit late, I will just repeat my list as far as the 10 Westerns I personally think would make for great role-playing adventures and even campaigns in some cases. Number 10 was the only modern film on this list. It was Bone Tomahawk. Then we've got the Wild Bunch, Major Dundee. We have She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. I want to say, I think that's probably my, well, yeah, I would say that's my favorite of the Cavalry trilogy. Rio Grande, also part of the Cavalry trilogy from John Ford, El Dorado. Then we've got Red River, possibly my favorite Western of all time. Then we got The Searchers, Fort Apache, and the Western film that I think would probably be the easiest to make into an adventure and easily entertain 4, maybe even 5 players is Rio Bravo. There you have it. All right. So this is the only show this week. Last week I had mentioned I am house sitting for 6 days. So I will be back a week from tomorrow. So that is July 1st. What the topic is going to be, I have absolutely no idea. Not a clue. But I am going to do my best to get some videos out there. And I will be popping back and forth to the homestead. It's just, I'm not close by. It's like 35-minute drive without traffic, or like with normal traffic. So I don't want to be driving back and forth constantly. But I am hoping to have at least 2, maybe 3 new reviews out prior to next Wednesday. I'd also mentioned early on, I had actually shot the review for Traveler Cluster Truck from Mongoose Publishing, and I didn't like the way the overhead shots looked. I should have swapped out the lens and gone with the lens I usually use. I didn't, and the overhead shots just aren't sharp enough for me. So I'm going to reshoot it. But in case you missed it, I did share my review of the Laundry role-playing game 2nd edition Operatives Handbook from Cubicle 7 Games earlier today. All right. So that's it for this time out. If you were watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, you get a tip of the cap. I'll doff my cowboy hat at you. And especially since, you're keeping me company. And you're also keeping each other company as I'm sharing the news or sharing a list of Western films I think would make good role-playing adventures. You know how it is. But of course, I also understand a lot of folks out there, they don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you for taking time out to watch any of the over 2,000 videos here on the channel. In fact, I think the next first look is the 1100th first look video. I think we're like 3 review videos away from 700. It's pretty wild. It's like, holy cow. Anyway, thank you for taking time out to watch whenever and however you do it. Of course, if you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings, right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. It'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as the aforementioned review of the Operative's Handbook, the Laundry 2nd edition. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are never going to see here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you kindly for watching. Once again, I will be back a week from tomorrow, July 1st. So everybody, enjoy the week ahead. Have a great weekend. And then, of course, I will see you next month. I'm Jeff McAleer. I really do appreciate you watching. And as always, I certainly hope each and every one of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.